She was barefoot, wrapped only in a thin cloth, shaking in the cold night. He pushed her out, thinking no one would see. But the gate man did. What happened next changed everything. Please stay with me as I tell you this story. And please do not forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved ones. It was a quiet night in a gated neighborhood. The clock showed 2 a.m. Musa, the gate man, sat inside his small gatehouse. The night was cold and still. He was tired, but trying to stay awake. Suddenly, a soft knock came from the gate. Musa looked through the peephole and saw a woman standing outside. She had no shoes. She wore only a thin wrapper around her body. Her hair was messy, and her body was shaking. She did not say anything, but her eyes told a story. She was scared and needed help. Before Musa could say anything, a man's voice called out from the dark road behind her. It was angry and loud. "Kemi, come back here!" the man shouted. Musa's heart beat faster. He recognized the man. It was Charles, a man who lived in the neighborhood. Charles looked angry and dangerous. Kemi, the woman, looked at Musa with silent fear. She did not move. She just stood there, hoping for help. Musa didn't know what to do. Should he open the gate and let her in? Or should he stay quiet? He felt like this was not a normal fight. Something was very wrong. Charles stepped closer, and Musa saw something shiny near the car, something that looked like a weapon. The night suddenly felt very dangerous. Musa had to decide fast. The night was quiet in the neighborhood, but inside the house, tension filled the air. Earlier that evening, Kemi and Charles were already fighting. Kemi sat on the worn sofa, her hands clenched in her lap. Charles stood near the window, his face tight with anger. The room felt small, heavy with unspoken words and hurt. "Why are you acting so distant?" Charles asked, his voice low but sharp. Kemi looked down. "I'm not distant. I just need space." Charles shook his head. "Space? Or are you hiding something?" She didn't answer. Charles moved closer. "I saw your messages. You've been lying to me." Kemi's eyes widened. "That's not true. You're with someone else, aren't you?" Charles accused. "No," Kemi said, her voice trembling. Charles grabbed her arm roughly. "Don't lie to me." Kemi pulled back, but Charles wouldn't let go. "Please, Charles, let me go," she whispered. Charles's grip tightened. "You don't get to walk away." Kemi's heart pounded in her chest. She felt trapped. Suddenly, Charles pushed her toward the door. "Get out," he said, cold and hard. Kemi stumbled, but managed to catch herself. She looked at him, fear and sadness in her eyes. Charles didn't care. He opened the front door and forced her outside. The night air was cold and biting. Kemi wrapped her thin wrapper tighter around herself, feeling every chill. She was barefoot. The cold ground burned her feet. From his small gatehouse, Musa watched quietly. He saw the struggle through the window. Musa knew Charles was trouble. He had seen the man's harsh side before, but he never thought it would come to this. Kemi stood near the gate, shivering and silent. Charles shouted, "Open the gate!" Musa's hands shook as he held the keys. He felt stuck. He wanted to help, but he was afraid. Charles moved closer to Kemi. She didn't fight back anymore. Her eyes looked to Musa, hoping. Musa's mind raced. He remembered something strange from days ago. A secret Charles was hiding. The cold night felt heavier now. Musa's heart beat fast. He had to choose what to do next. The quiet neighborhood was no longer safe. The night was just beginning. Musa sat still in his tiny gatehouse, eyes fixed on the scene just outside. The cold night pressed against the windows, but he barely felt it. His hands were still shaking. Kemi stood near the gate, barefoot and silent, wrapped in nothing but a thin cloth. Charles was shouting again, demanding the gate be opened. Musa's fingers hovered over the keys. He could open the gate, let Charles drag her back inside. That would be the easy thing, the safe thing. But something inside him said no. His mind began to spin. He had seen too much already. This wasn't just a lover's argument. It felt dangerous. And it wasn't the first time he'd felt that way. 2 weeks ago, Musa had been fixing the back fence when he heard loud voices from Charles's backyard. Hidden behind the bushes, he had paused. Charles was on the phone, pacing up and down. His voice was sharp, angry. "I don't care what she says," Charles had said. "If she talks, it's over for both of us. You hear me?" Musa didn't know who Charles was talking about, but the words stuck with him. He had felt a chill that day, the same one he felt now. Back in the present, Musa's heart thumped harder. He thought about helping Kemi, but what would happen if he did? Charles had power. He was rich, well-connected. People respected him in the estate. Musa was just a gate man. If he stepped in, he could lose his job, maybe even be arrested for interfering in family matters. And yet, could he really just watch? He looked at Kemi again. Her lips were trembling. Her eyes were filled with something worse than fear, hopelessness. Musa bit his lip. He had a family too, a wife and 2 kids in the village who depended on his small salary. If he lost this job, they would suffer. But if he did nothing and something happened to Kemi, could he live with that? Charles banged on the gate. "Musa! Open the gate now!" Still, Musa didn't move. He looked at the emergency button inside his post. If he pressed it, the estate security team and maybe the police would come. But pressing that button would change everything. His hands hovered, unsure. He had a choice: protect himself or protect someone who might be in real danger. And time was running out. Kemi stood near the gate, her arms wrapped tightly around her thin body. The cold night air bit at her skin, but she didn't move. She could feel Charles behind her, his footsteps, heavy and angry, drawing closer. Then suddenly, he grabbed her arm again. "I said come back inside," he hissed through clenched teeth. But this time, Kemi didn't freeze. With all the strength she had left, she pulled her arm away and ran. She ran straight to the gate, barefoot, wrapper flying behind her. Her feet scraped against the rough stones, but she didn't stop. Her heart was racing, not from fear, but from something else, something like courage. Charles shouted her name, louder now, angrier. "Kemi, get back here!" Musa saw it all through the dusty glass of his small post. His heart was pounding too. He had seen fights before. He had seen people argue, cry, scream. But this was different. Kemi wasn't just running. She was trying to escape. And Charles, he wasn't just angry. He was out of control. Charles reached the gate and grabbed Kemi's arm again, yanking her back. She let out a soft cry. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like a knife. That was the moment Musa stepped out. He didn't think. His body just moved. The door of the gatehouse creaked open. Musa's slippers hit the ground. The cold wind hit his face. He stood outside now, just a few feet away from them. "Sir, please," Musa said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Maybe let her come inside the gatehouse for a minute." Charles turned to him, eyes wild. "This is none of your business," Charles snapped. "Go back inside." But Musa didn't move. Kemi looked at him, eyes wide, lips parted like she wanted to speak, but couldn't. This was the moment. Musa could still step back, pretend he hadn't seen. He could go inside and lock the door, but he didn't. He stayed right where he was, because something in Kemi's face said if he didn't do something now, this wouldn't end well. And deep down, Musa knew this moment would define him forever. Charles took a step forward, brushing his hand down his shirt like he was calming himself. He looked at Musa with a fake smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "It's nothing serious," he said smoothly. "Just a small misunderstanding between husband and wife. You know how it is. Late night talk, too much stress, that's all." Musa didn't answer. His eyes moved from Charles to Kemi, who now stood with her back pressed against the gate. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking, but she still hadn't said a word. Charles stepped closer to Musa. "I'm taking her back inside. You don't need to get involved, my friend. Go back to your post." But something wasn't right. Charles was too calm now, too smooth. Just a minute ago, he had been shouting and yanking her like a rag doll, and now he wanted Musa to believe everything was fine. Musa hesitated, still standing between Charles and the gate. He looked at Kemi again. Then finally, she spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper, just loud enough for Musa to hear. "There's a gun in his car." Musa blinked, not sure if he heard her right. She didn't repeat it. She just looked at him, eyes full of fear, but this time also full of warning. Musa's heart started racing again. A gun. He glanced over at Charles's car, parked just a few feet away, engine still warm. His thoughts ran wild. Why would he need a gun? Was he planning to scare her, or worse? Charles noticed Musa's silence and frowned. "I said, we're going back. That's enough." But Musa didn't move. Not yet. His mind was spinning. If Kemi was telling the truth, then this wasn't just a lover's quarrel. This was dangerous. Musa knew he had to make a decision, and fast. He couldn't ask Kemi more questions. He couldn't accuse Charles of anything without proof. So, he played along. He forced a small, nervous laugh. "Okay, sir." I understand. Just wanted to make sure everything's okay. Charles gave a tight nod. Good. But behind Musa's back, his hands slowly reached for the key panel near the gate. One button press would call the estate patrol. Another would send a silent alarm straight to the local police. He didn't know what would happen next, but after hearing what Kemi said, he knew he couldn't just walk away. Not now. Not with a gun possibly sitting in the dark, waiting in that car. Charles stood in front of the gate now, his voice louder and sharper. Open the gate, Musa! Now! Behind him, Kemi stayed quiet, her hands folded tightly in front of her. Her eyes met Musa's, and for a second, time seemed to freeze. She didn't speak, she didn't shout, but her lips moved slowly. Don't, she mouthed, just one word, but it was enough. Musa felt sweat run down the back of his neck. His hands were cold, even though the night air was still and warm. He took a deep breath, nodded quickly like he agreed, and turned toward his small post. He opened the gatehouse door and stepped inside, pretending to grab his keys, but his fingers didn't go for the key ring. They went for the hidden switch beneath the desk. It was old, covered in dust, hardly ever used, but he remembered what the estate manager told him when he first got the job. If anything ever feels truly dangerous, press it. One press and the police are on their way. Silent, quick, no questions asked. Musa's hand hovered over the switch. Charles called out again. What's taking so long? Musa called back. Sorry, sir. The keys are stuck. 1 minute. Kemi stood still. She didn't move. She looked like she was holding her breath. Musa's heart was pounding hard now. He had maybe 3 minutes, maybe less. If he opened the gate, Charles could take Kemi and disappear. Or worse. If he waited too long, Charles might come into the post himself. Musa looked again through the glass window. The car was still there, quiet, closed. But now it looked darker somehow. He could almost feel the danger inside it. His finger pressed the switch. There was no sound, no light, nothing to show it had worked, but he trusted it had. Now he had to stall, just a little longer. He shook the keyring loudly and shouted, Found it! Coming! Kemi looked at him, eyes wide. She knew. Musa gave the smallest nod, then slowly stepped out of the post. He had 3 minutes to hold the line, and maybe save a life. Just as Musa stepped out of the gatehouse, Charles suddenly turned around and walked toward his car. His steps were fast, angry, and without warning. Musa's stomach dropped. He remembered Kemi's whisper. There's a gun in his car. He shouted without thinking. Hey! Charles, wait! But Charles didn't stop. Kemi's eyes went wide. She ducked low and moved behind a flower pot near the gate. Her bare feet scraped against the rough concrete as she tried to stay hidden. Musa took a few steps forward, his hands up. Sir, let's talk. But it was too late. Charles opened the car door and reached in. His hand grabbed something metal, long and black. Musa couldn't tell if it was a gun or not. His mind screamed at him to move, to do something. Drop it! Musa yelled. Charles didn't listen. He turned around fast, pointing the object, then stumbled. Kemi, from behind, had thrown a stone. It hit him on the back of the head. He fell to one knee, cursing. The metal object flew from his hand and hit the ground with a loud clack. But it wasn't a gun. It was a flashlight. It rolled across the concrete, its beams spinning wildly. Light flashed across Musa's face, then Kemi's, then the trees, like a spinning warning. But then came a sharp sound, a struggle. Charles grabbed Kemi by the arm and pulled her up. She screamed. Musa ran forward and tried to pull Charles back. The three of them struggled in the dark, their shadows dancing in the flashlight's beam. Suddenly, Kemi bit Charles on the hand. He shouted in pain and pushed her to the ground. That's when Musa saw it. Blood. It was on Kemi's leg, not hers. Charles's. A deep cut on his arm, probably from the edge of the gate when he fell earlier. Charles looked at the blood, then at Musa. His eyes were wild now. You think you're a hero, he growled. Musa didn't answer. He had a choice now. Fight this man, run back to the post and lock the door, or freeze and hope the police would come in time. He took one step back, but in his heart, he knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Charles stood bleeding, breathing heavily, one hand gripping his arm. Musa stayed still, eyes on him, trying to keep the fear off his face. Kemi was on the ground, holding her side, but her voice came out steady. I knew this day would come, she said quietly. Charles snapped, What are you talking about? Kemi didn't look at him. She looked at Musa. I've been planning to leave for weeks, she said. I just needed one safe moment. Musa blinked. His heart raced faster now. Planning? Weeks? Kemi continued. I knew he'd try something bad, so before everything started tonight, I left something in the mail slot. Musa's eyes widened. The mail slot. He turned slightly, his memory rushing back. Before his shift started, he had noticed a small brown envelope stuck deep inside the box. He hadn't opened it. He thought it was just another bill, or maybe a neighbor's complaint letter. But now, it has proof, Kemi said. Photos, audio, messages, everything. Charles's face changed. He turned pale. You did what? You think you're careful, Kemi said. But you're not. I kept records, and tonight was the final piece. Musa took a slow step backward toward the gatehouse. He didn't want to take his eyes off Charles, but he had to see what was in that envelope. If what Kemi said was true, it could change everything. You think anyone will believe you? Charles shouted. You think they'll listen to some poor woman in a wrapper? Kemi's voice didn't shake. They won't have to believe me. They'll see for themselves. Musa reached the gatehouse and opened the mailbox. His fingers found the envelope quickly. It was thick, heavy. He pulled it out, opened it, and what he saw inside made his stomach twist. Photos of bruises, a phone memory card, handwritten notes, proof. Musa looked at Charles. You should sit down, he said. For the first time, Charles didn't answer. The sound of sirens began in the distance, and for once, Charles wasn't the one in control. The sirens grew louder, bright red and blue lights flashing against the walls of the quiet gated community. Musa stood still, holding the envelope tightly in his hand. Charles looked like a trapped animal, angry, wounded, and desperate. You called the police? Charles growled, eyes darting between Musa and Kemi. No, Musa said calmly. You did that yourself. As the first police car pulled up, Charles made his move. He lunged at Kemi. She didn't scream. She didn't run. Instead, she did something no one expected. She grabbed the flashlight off the ground and swung it hard. It hit Charles across the side of his head. He dropped instantly. The officers rushed in, shouting commands. Two of them pinned Charles down, cuffing him while another checked on Kemi. She nodded weakly, whispering, I'm okay. One officer turned to Musa. What happened here? Musa hesitated. His eyes met Kemi's. For a moment, everything slowed down, and then, flashbacks. Musa remembered the first time he met Charles. Rich, smooth-talking, full of charm, but there was something cold behind his smile, something fake. Then, 2 weeks ago, Musa had heard shouting from inside their house. Loud thuds, glass breaking. He saw Charles grab Kemi's wrist so hard it left marks. When he tried to ask Kemi about it, she smiled politely and said she fell. He knew it was a lie, but he didn't report it. He needed the job. He needed to send money home. If he caused trouble, he might get fired. And Charles had power, the kind of power that could make problems disappear. Now, standing in front of the police, Musa felt the weight of all those silent moments. He handed the envelope to the officer. She gave me this. It has proof. She's been planning to escape. The officer nodded and took the envelope carefully. We'll take it from here. Kemi stood beside Musa. She looked tired, but calm. You didn't have to help, she said softly. Musa replied, I should have helped sooner. Charles, now bleeding and cuffed, sat in the back of the police car, eyes full of hate, but it was over, for now. As the cars pulled away and silence returned to the street, Musa leaned against his post. The night had changed everything, for Kemi, for Charles, for him, and deep down, he knew. This wasn't just about one night, it was about finally doing what was right. Weeks later, it's 2 a.m. again. Musa sits in his post. Another knock at the gate, but this time, it's not Kemi. The night is quiet, the air cold. Musa sips his tea slowly, staring out through the dusty glass of his tiny gatehouse. He thinks of that night, when Kemi came to the gate barefoot, in nothing but a wrapper, eyes filled with fear. That night changed everything. The blood, the screams, the truth. It still plays in his mind like a film. The knock comes again, light, but urgent. Musa's heart skips. He stands, walks to the gate, and peeks through the small hole. A girl, young, not more than 17. Her hair is messy, her clothes torn, barefoot, shivering. Her hands shake as she holds up a note. Musa opens the small hatch and takes it. The note reads, Help me. He's drunk. He hit me. I ran when he stopped the car. Musa looks past her and sees a dark car parked down the road. The door opens. A man steps out, staggering. He yells the girl's name in a slurred voice. It's happening again. Another woman. Another 2 a.m. Another silent cry for help. Musa feels a chill crawl up his spine. But this time, he doesn't wait. He doesn't second guess. He presses the silent alarm button hidden under his desk. The police will come. He opens the gate slightly and whispers to the girl, "Come inside, quickly." She rushes in, breath shaky, eyes wide. Musa locks the gate behind her and faces the man who is now walking towards them. "Stay right there," Musa shouts. His voice is steady now. The man freezes, confused. In the distance, sirens begin to rise. Musa doesn't blink. He stands tall. He's no longer just a gate man. He remembers Kemi. He remembers the choice he made. And now, he knows, it wasn't just one night. It was a warning, a lesson. And this time, he answered it without fear, at 2 a.m. Again. Do you think Musa did the right thing by stepping in again? Or should he have stayed out of it this time? I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoy tense, emotional stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one.